let me tell you a little secret, Iowa. I am all in for Bernie Sanders. Are you all in for Bernie Sanders? Are you ready to work this thing until we win Iowa in 2 weeks? Now listen, my Iowa brothers and sisters. I'm here for the same reasons you are. My sister Nina, she talked about the suffering that is going on across this country. There is too much suffering, too much greed and inequality, too much racism and sexism and xenophobia, too much Trumpism. All of that is expressed through Trumpism that has fallen onto America and is just lingering like that dirty old snow. And maybe you're one of those ones that's suffering. Maybe you are one of the people that cannot afford health care. Maybe you've seen somebody die that you love, somebody you know that can't get prescription drugs or health care for what that ails them. Maybe you are one of those people that's suffering from an enormous burden of student loan debt. Maybe you are suffering from not having a good enough job that pays you what you need to put food on the table and a roof over your head. Maybe you are suffering because of the destruction of our planet and you don't know where we are going to go in this world. Maybe you're suffering from the failure of our institutions and our democracy to stand up for working people instead of the wealthiest few and our corporations. Let me be really clear about something. This guy in the White House, his trademark is cruelty. His trademark is cruelty. And I say that as the first member of Congress to go into a federal prison and talk to over 200 mothers and fathers who had been ripped from their children, did not know where they are, and for some of them still don't know where their children are. It ain't right. I say that as a woman who has watched this administration rip away reproductive health care and do everything possible to take away that choice from women like me. That ain't right. I say that as a mother of a beautiful, gender non-conforming kid who deserves every right that you and I do, not to be bullied and called out by hate, but to be loved for who they are. And I say that as an immigrant woman of color, somebody who came to this country when I was 16 years old by myself. My parents made that ultimate sacrifice of sending me across the ocean, putting an ocean between them and their beloved child, because they actually believed in the American dream. They wanted me to have the opportunity that we hear about around the world. And so that is why it is so important for me, for us to do everything we can to make sure that that American dream is real. But I don't want you to be fooled about something, okay? Trump is both a symptom and a cause. He's both a symptom and a cause. Economic insecurity has been building for decades in this country because this system has not been working for working people. And that's been for a long time. But here's the thing. Where we are today is based on a series of choices we made. And that means we can make different choices ahead of us, right? We can turn our nation around, away from cruelty to a sense of humanity and decency, away from me-firstism to a collective belief in our interconnectedness and our humanity, away from greed and scarcity and towards love and generosity. The solutions are right in front of us. And so today, as we honor the life and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and Nina said a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King. He was deeply important to me as an activist and an organizer. And in his I Have a Dream speech, Dr. King said this, and it's just as true then as it is today. He said, "This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. The tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Just think about that. I know that people are deeply concerned about the choice that's ahead of us for president, and they should be. The consequences are real, and they are serious. And it may seem more comforting to go small, to do things that maybe don't disrupt the system. But the truth is that is not going to address the systemic problems that are in front of us. We have deep structural inequities in front of us, and we need bold structural change, because if we don't do that, this suffering is going to continue. But even worse than that, we might get somebody into the White House, but if that president is not bold and doesn't really fix the problem of healthcare, the problem of the climate crisis, the problem of racism, all of these things that are in front of us, then we may get another Donald Trump down the road. His name may not be Donald Trump, but we may get another one. And exactly 1 year from today, think about that, Iowa, 1 year from today, America will inaugurate a new president, and what we do between now and then, the way that we organize, the way that we build our movement, the way that we operate is going to mean the difference between 4 more years of Trump or a more hopeful future. And here in Iowa, we got 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks, right? We got 2 weeks, because you are going to lead the Democratic Party with your choice at this incredibly important moment in history. To tell you wholeheartedly that I believe that choice should be Senator Bernie Sanders. Now people have asked me, why Bernie? Tell us why Bernie? Why'd you make that choice? And so let me tell you really clearly, I've spent my life organizing. Okay, I'm an activist and an organizer. I helped to drive the movement for immigration reform across the country. I helped pass the $15 minimum wage in Seattle, the first major city in the country to do that. Way back in 2002, I was out in the streets organizing 50,000 people against the war in Iraq. I led the largest voter registration drive in the history of our state, 23,000 new immigrant citizens to vote. And I believe the next president of the United States has to understand that organizing is at the center of everything. And Bernie Sanders is building that movement and organizing people across this country. Now, here's the other thing about Bernie Sanders. He brings an authenticity and a steadfastness. You know, my relationship with him goes back to 2015. I was a brand new state senator in Washington state, and I became either the first or one of the first elected officials to endorse Bernie back then. And it was because of his authenticity, his steadfastness, his work over years to build the movement and to fight for the change we need. Back in 1993, Bernie Sanders was fighting for a living wage. And of course, when I started running for Congress, I was so proud that I was one of the first 3 candidates that he endorsed for Congress. But here's the thing about Bernie Sanders. The thing about Bernie Sanders is he exemplifies what I think of when I think of progressives. I'm the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, 40% of the Democratic Caucus. We are working to make that bigger with your help. And what I like to say is just what you see in Bernie. Progressives, true progressives, are just the first to the best and the most just idea, and then they build the movement to make that idea real. Is that right? And here's the third reason. Bernie brings a clarity of purpose to his policy proposals. And let's just be very clear on this. Bernie Sanders helped to create the movement for Medicare for all and universal health care across this country. Without Bernie Sanders, there would be no movement for Medicare for all. And as the lead sponsor of the Medicare for All House and the bill in the House, let me tell you this, we have had 4 historic historic hearings in the House, never before in the House of Representatives. We have over half of the Democratic caucus, and I am so thrilled that now, endorsing Bernie, I'm going to be the National Health Policy Chair for Bernie Sanders, and together we are going to keep going and building that movement for Medicare for all. Now, let me tell you this. Bernie knows that our organizing cannot be limited just to the people who are already engaged, okay? That's called the myth of the likely voter. Bernie wants to move us past that to the truth of every voter. He wants to get out there, and he wants you to get out there and help bring people in so that they believe again in democracy, and they come back out and they vote and they rock these caucuses. And it's not just the same people, it's new people who believe again that a president is going to stand up for them. That's what Bernie Sanders is ready to do. So we've got 2 weeks left to go in Iowa, and the stakes could not be higher. No pressure. No pressure, except we got a lot of pressure. Stakes could not be higher. This is not theoretical. Real lives are at stake, and so we cannot leave a single door unknocked, a single person not talked to. We can't make a single contact where we don't make it clear what is before us. We can't be tranquilized by gradualists. We can't be anesthetized by polite solutions that may sound enticing but aren't going to fix the problem. We need deep structural change that is led by a movement demanding more and a leader who does not turn away from working people. We need the kind of change that President Bernie Sanders will bring. And so let's paint that vision. Change like universal comprehensive health care for every single person in America. Change like student debt forgiveness and debt cancellation for millions of young people across this country. Change like stronger labor unions and real collective bargaining to check corporate power. Change like progressive foreign policy and saying no more to the military-industrial complex. Change like expanding Social Security and taking care of our elders as they go on in their lives. And change like taking on climate change that puts frontline folks, black and brown folks, and the workers that work in the fossil fuel industries at the front as we tackle and save our planet and our people. President must be courageous enough to say what is true and fight for it always, not just when it's easy or convenient. Our next president must be a leader that reminds us all that there is real power in thinking big and building the movement to enact that change. And our next president must be a leader who understands that the power is in we, the people. And that is why I am here today to joyfully, fully, passionately introduce you to that leader, the next president of the United States of America, Senator